let's get into the news. Well, folks, I know unless you've been living under a rock for the last, 7 or 8 months, you have seen all the hullabaloo about the protests that are happening on college campuses all over America over Israel's genocide of the Palestinian people in the Gaza Strip. And people forget the West Bank as well. Before October 7th, there had already been a record amount of people killed in the West Bank in those illegal settlements that the UN and everybody else has called illegal. The whole world has condemned Israel for doing it, but they rarely talk about that one. But particularly now for Gaza, because this is an out-and-out genocide against the Gazan people. Well, guess what? Very soon it may be illegal for me to even say this, because the U.S. House and the Senate and all these people, they overwhelmingly approved the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act. Yes, they have approved a bipartisan measure requiring the Department of Education to adopt an International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance definition of anti-Semitism. The House members voted 320 to 91, so it really didn't matter who you voted for, now does it? To approve the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act in effort to end anti-Semitism on college campuses, as pro-Palestinian protests throughout the United States have grown in the last few weeks. Supporters said the measure would help quell anti-Semitism on the nation's college campuses, while opponents said it would violate Free Speech Act. Yeah, because we have a First Amendment, everybody. A First Amendment of free speech, yes. The proposed act would require the Department of Education to enforce federal anti-discrimination laws based on the IHRA's definition of anti-Semitism. The IHRA defines anti-Semitism as a certain perception of Jews. So you get in trouble for a perception now, which may be expressed as hatred toward other Jews and rhetorical and physical manifestations directed towards Jewish and non-Jewish individuals and their property, and toward Jewish community organizations and religious facilities. Now, if this don't remind me of Brother Boo right here, because he would always talk about, you got the anti-Asian crime bill, the Stop Asian Hate crime bill. Now the Jews get a crime bill, basically, or an anti-Semitism bill. Now, where is the bill for the group of people who vote 95% of the time for Democrats in every election while we have a Democratic president and a Democratic House? I mean, a Democratic Senate, we had the House, they had the House, they had the Senate, they had the presidency for a while there. Nothing like this where you can't say anything bad about black people. You're allowed to do that all day. You're allowed to slander black people all day, and you ain't going to lose anything for it. Now, the IHRA also says anti-Semitism may include targeting Israel. Really? So you're not allowed to target a foreign country. This is a foreign country, not America, a foreign country. The anti-Semitism might include targeting Israel, including accusing Jews of conspiring to harm humanity and blaming Jews for things gone wrong in speech, writing, visual formats, and action, while employing sinister stereotypes and negative character traits. Again, this is a foreign country. You can get on TV. You can go to school. You can go anywhere in this country and say Joe Biden is the worst president in the world. You could get on TV. You could say Donald Trump is Hitler and Mussolini. You can make fun of them and do whatever you want. You can make fun of Joe Biden being old. You can make fun of Bill Clinton for being a degenerate. You can make fun of Barack Obama and his family for being black. Okay? But you can't say anything about Israel? Think about that. That is a foreign country. How is it that Israel is more protected by the United States than Americans are? This is a historically ridiculous idea right here. The IHRA also says that anti-Semitism could include calling for, assisting, or justifying killing or harming Jews in the name of radical ideology or an extremist view of religion, and falsely claiming a global Jewish conspiracy exists to control media, national economies, government, and other societal institutions. Wow, what a way to convince people that you're not controlling everything by being the only people in society that nobody can say anything bad about without either losing their job or, you know, going to jail or something, or, you know, facing some sort of consequences. You the only people in society that get this? But I'm sure you have absolutely no power in our society. That's right, you know. Denying the Holocaust occurred and blaming Jews as a whole for real or imagined bad acts committed by individuals, groups, and non-Jews also qualifies as anti-Semitism, according to the IHRA, as does claiming the state of Israel as a racist endeavor, which it is. The state of Israel only exists because Great Britain and the United States and all these places wanted a basic European outpost in the Middle East to make sure that the Arab world could not unite. We talked about this early at the beginning of the conflict. They were going to put Israel in Uganda. That's where it was going to be. Or Argentina. Palestine was the last option of where to put Israel. So this idea that the only reason that, you know, they are there because they're the people of the land, these are white people. And I'm going to say that while I still can. These are white people. Netanyahu is Polish. He's from Philadelphia. Look it up. Think about this, folks. You are not allowed to say something negative about a foreign country. Now, you could say Vladimir Putin is Hitler himself. You could say Xi Jinping is waging a genocide against the Uyghur Muslims. You can say whatever you want about any leader in the world, including our own leaders in the United States of America, and it is protected speech. But you say anything about the state of Israel, and magically free speech don't exist. And I want to show you guys something. This is the brain worms that have taken over the people in charge of our media and political system. This is bipartisan. This is bipartisan here. This is Hillary Clinton right here. Hillary Clinton. Oh man, I really wish Jonathan was here to hear this, because we loved scorching Hillary Clinton, but here she is now. Here she is now condemning the college students who are protesting against Israel's genocide.
I have had many conversations, as you have had, with a lot of young people over the last many months now. And you're right, they don't know very much at all about the history of the Middle East, or frankly about history in many areas of the world, including in our own country. But with respect to the Middle East, they don't know that under the bringing together of the Israelis and the Palestinians by my husband, the then Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak, the then head of the Palestinian Liberation Organization, then the Palestinian Authority, Yasser Arafat. An offer was made to the Palestinians for a state on 96% of the existing territory occupied by the Palestinians, with 4% of Israel to be given to reach 100% of the amount of territory that was hoped for. And this offer was made, and if Yasser Arafat had accepted it, there would have been a Palestinian state now for about 24 years. It's one of the great tragedies of history that he was unable to say yes. My husband has a book coming out later this year, Joe, in which he talks about how Arafat kept saying he intended to agree, he wanted to agree, but he was, as you rightly point out, pretty sure he'd be killed because, Sadat was killed by extremists when he made peace with Israel. Our dear, dear friend, Yitzhak Rabin, was killed by a radical Israeli when he was pursuing the two-state solution. So this is a very important piece of history to understand if you're going to take any kind of position with respect to what's going on right now. And there's much more.
No, you're lying. You're lying. What makes you lie? Lies, 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 yeah. Lies, 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 yeah. Lies, 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 yeah. Lies, 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 yeah.
So there we go. Hillary Clinton doing what she does best, which is lying. In 2000, her husband, the Palestinians, and Israel got together. The deal that was presented to the Palestinians was a piece of crap deal that would leave Israel in charge to define everything. The terms themselves would be defined by Israel. 20 years would be defined by Israel. Like it was literally about bending over backwards for Israel to basically give any rights to Palestinians whatsoever. Okay? And even still, the Palestinians didn't turn it down. What happened was Israel's government changed because they kept meeting after the Oslo Accord. They kept meeting, and then Israel had a right-wing extremist government come in, and they basically rescinded that offer. So no, the Palestinians did not turn down some sweetheart deal. They were negotiating a deal, and the first iteration of it would give Israel all the power over Palestine. And so they said, well, maybe we should look at, and even still, they didn't completely turn it down. They were still negotiating until Israel got a new government, and the new government that was a right-wing government said, hell no, screw these Palestinians. That's what happened. But it just goes to show you that, again, these people are liars. This is what Hillary Clinton is. Now, she said this on. She said this on Morning Joe, which is the show hosted by Joe Scarborough, who's a Republican, and his wife, Mika Brzezinski. Now, Joe Scarborough, being a Republican, he did his Israel stick. One of my favorite moments ever on MSNBC is when Mika Brzezinski's father, the late Zbigniew Brzezinski, who was a diplomat and worked for Lyndon Johnson and Jimmy Carter, came on and straight put the smackdown on his own damn son-in-law. You got to listen to this. This is what happened when he tried to pull this nonsense.
What do we do the next time Israel is attacked?
Now, mind you, this is from 2008. The context is this is actually 2008. Listen to how much it sounds like they're talking about right now. But this is actually when Obama first got elected, I believe. This is from 2008. This is Zbigniew Brzezinski, who is a political scientist and diplomat who served as counselor to Johnson and Jimmy Carter in the 60s and 70s. This is how he addresses his son-in-law, Joe Scarborough, who tried to use the Palestinians are just irrational idiots.
From an outside force, What do we do at that point?
That's the wrong question.
No, that's not the wrong question, because we never get the condemnation of Hamas or Hezbollah. It's always after Israel responds to defending itself.
No, it's not. The problem is that this conflict has lasted for years, and the United States has been largely passive. So the right question is not what do we do when things break down. The right question is what do we do to avoid a breakdown by being engaged seriously in the peace process. And for the last 8 years, we haven't been. And that's why we have the mess like we have right now in our hands.
You can't blame what is happening in Israel right now on the Bush administration.
Yes, you can.
No, you can't.
Well, look, Joe.
Let's go back to 2000, Dr. Brzezinski. You and I both know Bill Clinton gave Arafat and the Palestinians everything they could have wanted.
Such a stunningly superficial knowledge of what went on that it's almost embarrassing to listen to you. If you were to look more closely at what happened in the Clinton-Camp David discussions, you would know that what you have just said is absolutely wrong. There were all sorts of provisions and catches to the so-called proposal, and it wasn't rejected. The negotiations went on in Taba, and then there were elections in Israel, and Sharon came in, and everything got aborted. In the last 8 years, we had a policy in which we have proclaimed an interest in peace. Condi Rice has traveled 16 times in 21 months to the region, proclaiming, you must do this, you must do that, but the United States never exerted itself. So the issue that Obama faces, and that's a question that you raised, is, are we going to be sitting there issuing condemnations, whether it's of Hamas or of Israel or anybody else, or are we going to be seriously engaged in the peace process?
So that's the late Zbigniew Brzezinski, who died a few years ago, smacking down his son-in-law. I could only imagine. You could just, I wish you guys could see this clip. You could just see the disdain he has for his own son-in-law. And he's looking at his daughter. He's looking over his daughter like, why'd you marry this idiot? Woo! Oh, man. But, of course, liberals love Joe Scarborough now because he hates Trump. So that just goes to show you, the bar for being accepted by MSNBC liberals is so low that all you have to do is dislike Trump. You could be a Zionist moron with very little or surface-level knowledge of world affairs, and all you got to do is say Trump bad, and these people will, roll out the red carpet for you. But what I really loved about this, recently was you hear Hillary Clinton and all these morons. I won't say they're morons. They are, because they're purposely being duplicitous here. They're liars. Hillary Clinton and all these liars talk about how uneducated and uninformed young people are. Well, let me tell you this. I just saw on Fox 32 News here in the Chicagoland area a few days ago, they talked to this young man over at the University of Chicago who is one of the protesters out there. You tell me if this young man sounds like he's a complete moron and doesn't know what he's talking about. Please.
The campus of the University of Chicago. Campus police there breaking up a protester encampment.
Police in riot gear arrived on campus early this morning. Joni has been there very early. She has the latest. Joni, what has unfolded since you arrived?
Well, the campus police, as you said, moved in just before 5 a.m. And these protesters have been holding the line now for 2 hours. There's a bullhorn behind us, so it's very loud. Christopher was on the inside when it happened. Describe what happened in the quadrangle this morning.
Yeah, it was horrific. They waited like cowards until every single student was asleep in their tent, basically. And then they stormed in, maybe 40 or 50 of them with riot gear, screaming. They started throwing wood planks, throwing chairs, throwing absolutely everything in any direction to destroy the camp as fast as possible, to suppress this movement as fast as possible. And in fact, one of the chairs that they threw came within maybe 3 inches of hitting my girlfriend in the head. And they had just woken us up.
Oh, it was dark because it was before sunrise. You had a warning that they were coming, but they didn't for a while, and so everybody was
We had no warning. No, we had no warning.
Okay, so then, what did you do when all that action was happening?
I tried to make sure everyone was safe. I mean, it was chaos. It was terrifying. Yeah.
So you were able to get out. I understand that students are being threatened with disciplinary action for being in there.
They gave us some ridiculous notice out here saying that like participants in the quad encampment, which no longer exists thanks to them, are facing like an interim leave of absence as well as a criminal trespass charge. I have no idea if that's just a scare tactic or if it's real, but it doesn't matter because the difference between us and people like these cops is that there are limits to when we continue following orders. And when you're talking about a genocide visited upon a colonized population of 2 million people trapped in a ghetto that's as long as a marathon and 6 miles wide, when that ghetto is being systematically starved, slaughtered, every hospital bombed, every university bombed, 70% of homes destroyed, 40,000 people murdered, 15,000 children murdered, the entire population on the brink of starvation, we say, and if our government and our academic institutions are complicit in this, there comes a point where we say we're not following orders and it doesn't matter what you do to us because there are principles and there are human lives that matter more than our careers and our futures, and that's what separates us from people like Paul Olivisatos, the coward president of this university, and these coward cops that come in terrorizing an encampment while people are sleeping.
You've been standing at this line linked arm in arm with other protesters. What has happened here?
What's happening here, you'd have to ask them. Apparently they're trying to intimidate us, trying to suppress the protest that is continuing to grow. I think that they thought they could basically terrify us into inaction, into flight. But this is what this university has never understood, has never accepted, has never reckoned with about this student movement, like, and not just at UChicago but around the country, is that the commitment to Gaza runs deeper than fears for our safety, fears for our careers, fears for our paychecks. It is a fundamental obligation we have as citizens of a country that is presiding over this genocide, arming this genocide, and as students at a university that is invested in those same weapons manufacturers and that is partnered with the same apartheid institutions that train that military and develop its technology.
That is what I'm talking about right there. Yeah, that man sounds so ignorant and so ill-informed and just so, that dude is just so, you can tell he's on drugs. You can just tell he's on drugs. He can barely form a sentence. He's foaming at the mouth. That's who's out there. People like that young man over at the University of Chicago. But once again, because you see the freak out that is happening, because we all see this freak out that is happening, they are getting desperate. The Zionists, who obviously have some form of control over our government and media, are freaking out here, and these kids are freaking them out. That's why they banned TikTok. I covered the TikTok ban I think it was a few weeks ago. They are absolutely terrified that because people no longer trust the corporate media, they don't trust ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox News, MSNBC, CNN. They don't trust the newspapers in any place because they can actually see the suffering of the people on the ground in Gaza. They could see live footage from Gaza, children being blown up, being maimed. You could see large swaths of people being incinerated by 2,000-pound bombs being dropped on an area the size of New York Central Park. On 2.2 million people, half of those people being children. People can see what's up now. A lot of people used to be able to be snowed by the corporate media because we had no other options. Now, the wheels are falling off and they are getting desperate. I will say this. I actually saw this not too long ago this was from MSNBC, and I was actually surprised that they allowed this on the corporate media. But this is Ali Velshi, and this is probably because he's a Muslim or a Middle Eastern person why he was able to do this. Usually they would not let him do this, but now the sort of the emperor has no clothes, and people see what Israel is and what the Zionist forces in this country, that keep our media and our politicians continuing to suck up to them, people are starting to see what it is, and even some people in the corporate media are starting to acknowledge what this is. You listen to this. If you don't listen to anything else, listen to this. This is a member of the corporate media breaking down AIPAC and the effect that they have on all of our politicians and the media.
AIPAC, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee. It was incorporated in 1963. For 10 years prior to that, it was known as the American Zionist Committee for Public Affairs. AIPAC calls itself America's pro-Israel lobby, and according to its website, it has over 3 million members across the country in regional chapters working to, quote, expand and strengthen the U.S.-Israel relationship, end quote. You may know AIPAC as being one of the biggest and most recognizable donors to many of the members of Congress in your state. But contributing to campaigns is a relatively new function of the organization. Before 2021, AIPAC did not endorse candidates nor give political contributions. Its focus was on lobbying elected officials, not actually electing officials. But in a dramatic shift in policy, AIPAC began directly funding candidates and spending big on races in 2021. AIPAC Political Action Committee, AIPAC-PAC, filed something called a Statement of Organization with the FEC just in time for the 2022 election cycle, where it spent $50 million, including both direct contributions to candidates and outside spending, like TV advertisements. According to AIPAC, it donated money to 365 candidates from both parties, including every single member of both Democratic and Republican leadership in Congress. 109 Republicans who voted against the certification of the 2020 presidential election in America received campaign contributions from AIPAC. All in all, AIPAC gave money to 342 members of the 118th Congress. The 2022 elections were the most expensive midterms in American history, with a total cost of $8.9 billion spent. Now, last year, AIPAC ranked 15th in total expenditure by a political action committee, according to data collected by Open Secrets. But take a look at the other funders that AIPAC is competing against for that title. Act Blue and Win Red. They are Democratic and Republican Party machines. Save America is Donald Trump's money-raising operation. The Conservative Club for Growth, Emily's List, focuses on electing Democratic women to office. All of the PACs on this list are massively domestic-focused ideological machines. AIPAC is the only organization in the top 20 whose interests are focused entirely on America's relationship to a foreign government. Now, let's take a look at who benefits from AIPAC's largesse. Here are the top 20 recipients in Congress, the House and the Senate, of AIPAC money in the 2022 midterm cycle, according to Open Secrets. They're members of both parties. They come from every corner of the country with varying levels of experience in Congress. The Democrat Glenn Ivey of Maryland tops the list. He beat out fellow Democrat Donna Edwards in Maryland's House primary after AIPAC poured millions into pro-Ivey advertisements and mailers. Edwards was running for a second stint in Congress after serving during the Obama administration, where she voted present, not even a no, on a number of pro-Israel resolutions. So the money poured in against her. Not even an endorsement from Nancy Pelosi could save her. Michigan Democrat Haley Stevens unseated Democratic Representative Andy Levin. Here's what Levin had to say about that.
I'm really Jewish, but AIPAC can't stand the idea that I am the clearest, strongest Jewish voice in Congress, standing for a simple proposition that there's no way to have a secure democratic homeland for the Jewish people unless we achieve the political and human rights of the Palestinian people.
AIPAC spent $4 million against Levin. He lost by 20 points. When Michigan Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib, the only Palestinian American in Congress, was censured by the House in early November over what some lawmakers called her rhetoric around the Israeli-Hamas war, 22 Democrats joined Republicans in that censure vote. 18 of those Democrats received campaign funds from AIPAC in 2022, totaling more than $1.1 million. By the way, for these 6 of them, AIPAC was their top contributor. A growing list of progressive lawmakers who are vocal in their criticism of the government of Israel and its policies and their support for Palestinian self-determination have inspired AIPAC to spend even more. As progressive lawmakers began calling for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, Slate reported that insiders expect AIPAC's 2024 spending to hit $100 million. In fact, United Democracy Project, which is a pro-Israel super PAC affiliated with AIPAC, is already spending money on attack ads against Democratic Representatives Jamal Bowman of New York and Summer Lee of Pennsylvania. Lee has already got a primary challenger, as do Cori Bush and Ilhan Omar. Pro-Israel donors have already signaled that they are eager to primary Rashida Tlaib and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Congresswoman Lee already overcame AIPAC's financial influence against her once. She tweeted criticisms of Israel's treatment of Palestinians in 2021, but as a candidate, she affirmed Israel's right to exist. But that's not good enough. AIPAC spent nearly $3 million in the primary alone to defeat Lee, and they almost did. She beat Stephen Irwin, who is third on the list of money given to candidates by AIPAC in 2022, by less than 1,000 votes.
Wow. Just showing that basically AIPAC operates as a cartel more than anything else. So I'm just saying, folks, do your diligence. Don't depend on CNN, ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox, or whatever. It's very rare you'll see something like that on an MSNBC or on a major media platform, because they are overwhelmingly owned and controlled by the few billionaires who own the media. And virtually all of them are Zionists. And this is why they want TikTok banned, and this is why they want social media regulated so hard, because they can no longer control narratives. All right, folks, when I get back, we're going to talk about why you pay so much, why we all pay so much for gas. Why are we paying so much for gas? We'll see when we come back.